Although never the best, Nekomata was once considered at least a viable DPS when the game was released. However, the meta has ever since then shifted by quite a bit, and while standard banner characters always get power crept by newer and also stronger premium units, also known as the Deluxe syndrome, Nekomata has had one of, if not the fastest downfall in Zenless Zone Zero since the game's release. Well, outside Alan that is. Once being considered a tier 1 unit who was at least able to reliably clear endgame content, to now residing all the way down in tier 3, superseded by the likes of Jane Doe, Piper, Billy and possibly even Corin. What happened to Nekomata? Nekomata's history actually begins all the way back in the CBT. While her initial design was centered around attacking enemies from behind, she lost the ability of her EX special dealing extra damage when attacking from behind after the CBT-1 tuning test. Her signature weapon, however, didn't, and it still grants a 25% damage bonus when attacking characters from behind up until today. When paired with her 5th basic attack, having her dash around for an unknown amount of times, her own kit actually plays against her signature weapon's design. While it could be speculated this is likely a leftover and oversight on the side of Hoyoverse after changing her kit, one can also argue against that simply by looking at her Mindscape 1, which now considers all of Nekomata's attacks back attacks when the enemy is stunned, as well as providing her a 16% physical resignor. But not only did she lose her back attacks, but back in the CBT-1 anomalies also have not been a thing yet. And so it came to be that instead of being centered around her gimmick of attacking from behind, not only her new kit, but also her disk drive set Fanged Metal were now centered around the assault anomaly. This change in design philosophy around Nekomata already became problematic when the game was released. Not only did she really want her Mindscape 1, but she also wants the enemy to be stunned to actually make use of her new Mindscape. Unfortunately for her, there were not many stunners in the game at that point in time, which also worked well with her effectively. Lycon provided good days and a stun multiplier, but Alan existed and wanted him more than Neko did. While Ambi would activate Nekomata's additional ability, she is electric type, and while she was the best and frankly also only free-to-play choice, she had no attribute matching nor any buffs to benefit Nekomata. Physical weak enemies never have had a weakness to electric, and since we would want to match Nekomata against a physical weak enemy, that simply hindered Ambi's stun potential. All of that left Koleda, who in theory paired well enough with Nekomata in both terms of days as well as weakness matching, but was and still is considered clunky and simply not good enough by a large amount of the player base. Koleda also has had been considered very reliant on her EX special and hence her energy, which meant she wanted a lot of field time, especially without her signature. Unfortunately, that yet again plays against Nekomata's kit, especially her core skill, which increases Nekomata's damage when using a dodge counter or quick assist. Unfortunately for Neko, Koleda was also often occupied by Piper-Lucy teams. Speaking of Piper, she was played quite a bit early on with Nekomata simply to proc more assaults to get Neko's additional passive up. But it turned out Piper simply ended up doing more damage than Neko and ended up synergizing better with the teammates Neko frequently ran, such as Koleda or Lucy. In general, Neko was often simply overshadowed by her A-rank competition, namely Piper and Billy. It also did not necessarily help her that her passive and the 4-piece Fanged Metal set craved for frequent assaults, while her personal physical anomaly build-up remained rather low. At the time, run-rotating Shiyu was pretty popular, and with both Billy and Piper simply being better at doing exactly that, she was off to a rough start. Her additional ability was not only difficult to activate, but also required her to be paired with another physical DPS such as Piper to actually get the assaults needed to make use of the passive in the first place. However, running Piper, Billy or Corin essentially meant giving up either a stunner or a buffer in the team, which lowered her already not too impressive damage even further, and more often than not these units were outperforming Nekomata within her own team. However, even with all these problems in place, she was still considered a tier 1 unit who was able to clear endgame content reliably, even if not with the most impressive times. Fast forward 2 months and Jane has been released. Not only did we start to enter the anomaly meta, but Jane and Piper did everything Neko did, but better and more reliable, which to be fair is simply dealing damage, but without all of the problems Nekomata's kit has attached to it. Jane basically being Piper but crit with a very similar playstyle to Nekomata didn't really help her either. With frequent dodges built into her kit, she essentially played like Neko but dealt Piper's damage, and they could crit as well. This also somewhat led to players overlooking Piper by quite a bit, but that is another video. When Caesar released, it was looking like something Nekomata really wanted. Another physical unit who was not only able to buffer but also inflict daze while not taking too much field time. Unfortunately for Neko, both Jane and Piper wanted that as well, and they just did what Nekomata did, but again, simply better and more reliable. And so did Billy as well. Double supports at that time have not been too popular either, and while Nicole has always been strong, we simply didn't know how strong Nicole really was all the way back then. The release of Bernice was the final nail in the coffin. Not only did she elevate Jane and Piper to new levels by effectively introducing the first disorder compositions in the game, but we also finally entered the full anomaly meta. While every other unit in the game got constant new shiny toys to play with and strengthened their position in the meta, Neko was left alone. Piper and Jane got Caesar and Bernice, Piper and Jane got Yanagi, and even Soldier 11, who wasn't really considered super strong in the beginning, got lighter, and she is doing just fine enough nowadays. By now, not only have enemies been getting stronger in Shio defense, but all the Shio buffs have also been catering to an anomaly playstyle, which worked well enough for Jane and Piper, but well, not so much for Neko. This was also the time when crit DPS characters started to struggle. Well, outside of Sujuan that is, but that is yet again another topic. With the release of Miyabi and also Deadly Assault just 2 days after, her spot did not get better. In fact, it got so much worse. Deadly Assault has been missing physical weak enemies ever since it has been released, and this did not only impact the performance of the likes of Jane and Piper, but even more so on Neko. An anomaly meta with new units who completely outclassed Neko in every aspect and game mode, with most units not even having a physical weakness. With even Shio defense's HP nearly tripling since its release, Mindscape Zero Nekomata has ever since Deadly Assault dropped struggled to even clear the content in the first place. With enemies nowadays having massive HP, no physical weakness in Deadly Assault, and sometimes not even in Shio defense, and stronger characters releasing every 3 weeks, Nekomata has not only been power crept in terms of her kit and playstyle, but also simply in the amount of damage needed to clear endgame content. In the meantime, everyone and their mom got a new shiny support to play with. While a well-invested Mindscape 1 and higher Nekomata can clear both Shio defense and Deadly Assault nowadays, she gets outclassed even by the likes of Corin and Billy, leaving her at one of the possible worst states she has ever been in. While the release of new units such as Astra, Pulchra and Trigger have in theory been very nice for Nekomata, either by them providing quick assists or passive daze, the game's endgame content has been simply getting too strong for Nekomata to be able to keep up with many other agents. Not only did her supports come about 6 versions too late, they also simply aren't good enough to fix the abysmal damage Neko deals in comparison to what actually is required nowadays. So what are your thoughts on Nekomata? Will she ever be able to recover if we finally get physical weak enemies? Or is she doomed forever? What could Hoyo do to have her make a comeback? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero content, and have a great day. Peace.